Welcome, peace, 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 everybody. Welcome to the Cosmic Paradox Realm. If you are here, then you are obviously someone who is seeking to uncover the deeper truths that's hidden in plain sight, as we tend to break down movies, media, and mythology to reveal the esoteric, the mystical, and the occult, and the transformative. And today we are going to discuss the hidden occult truth about human evolution and spiritual awakening. And we are going to observe this looking at the movie Powder. That's right, the 1995 classic movie Powder. Now, this was initially suggested to me um, as a breakdown download as a breakdown video from a Patreon subscriber. So shout out to you all who are on the Patreon who do drop your comments and make your suggestions. I do pay attention to them. I do see them. And I totally agree with you. The movie Powder is one of those, very deeply spiritual movies that came out in the 90s. And it's one of my personal favorites. I watched it all the time growing up. If you do follow me on social media, you have seen me, or you may have seen me post a clip from this movie where I kind of talked about a particular scene in the movie that kind of highlights some of these things that we're going to talk about today. So it was only right that, I sit down and reveal to you all what's been shown to me and the things that I picked up on from this particular movie. It's a very powerful movie and it has a very powerful message in it. So, the movie Powder, if you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend it. Now, it is not, as of this current moment in time, it is not available on any other streaming platforms. Now, of course, Prime offers the ability to rent and purchase movies, so, not saying that you need to do that or however you may go about seeing, your movies or what have you. Uh, you want to check this movie out. So, I want you to think about it like this. Have you ever watched a movie and felt like it was telling you something, but you may not have been able to put your finger on it, right? There's a lot of movies that's like that, right? Now, Powder is one of those movies. It's more than a movie, right? It's more than just being a movie about an outcast. It's really an esoteric blueprint for human potential, for energy manipulation, and spiritual evolution. And today we're gonna have a discussion and we're gonna break down some of the hidden occult symbolism in the movie Powder and how it reveals the next step of human consciousness. Now, a quick summary about the film, if it's been a long time since you've seen it, for those of you who may not have seen it, just a quick little summary for you all. You're looking at some movie about there's this mysterious teenager. He's not just a regular teenager. He is extremely albino, right? So he's extremely albino and he's in a small town. So first of all, when you're dealing with a small town, people not really used to seeing things that are different, right? So he's in this place where he is so albino, he appears so different that he has been kept away from the public by his grandparents, raised by his grandparents. His mother died. Now the reason that he's albino is because his mother, when she was carrying him, when she was pregnant with him in the womb, she was struck by lightning. So he is living with his grandparents, so he's raised by his grandparents. Unfortunately, his grandfather has now passed away after his grandmother obviously passed away some years ago, but his grandfather has passed away and they pretty much have to come and get him because he is a teenager. So he's not able to live on his own, not legally, right? So he's legally not able to live on his own. So they come and he's actually in the basement when they arrive. This is where he spends most of his time, in the basement. And this is where he's lived and where he's been since birth with his grandparents. Never been to school, don't do any outside interactions. He just lives on his grandparents' farm. So that's all he knows. He's has a ton of books. He's read all of these books. He's very, very, very intelligent, but he's never been to school. It's very important to note that he's never been a part of the institution of the school system. So he's extremely intelligent. His name is Jeremy Reed, and they call him Powder as a nickname, right? So he's not welcomed in the community because he looks so different. That's how it is when you're in a small town, right? All eyes are obviously going to be on him everywhere he goes. People are looking at him different. He got to go to this boys' home and live. They trying to bully him at school. They trying to, they everybody gets away from him. But even though he has this extremely pale skin, he has the unnatural or supernatural ability to harness extrasensory perception. So he can hear people's thoughts. He can feel what people are thinking. He can feel and know things about people that people want to keep buried and hidden within themselves, right? And he's also has the ability to communicate, you know, psychically, so to speak, right? And he has a relationship we have to look at as he's thrown into the world, his relationships that he has with a particular teacher, with the people of this town, and how everybody he comes into contact with, he pretty much changes their whole perception of life because, he's pretty much the embodiment of the next step of human consciousness, so to speak. So this is what the whole movie is ultimately about, right? So even though there's some people who want to help him, there's quite a few people who just can't take to him because he's just too different. So some of the key themes that you find within this movie is isolation, enlightenment, energy, energy manipulation, and evolution. So this movie teaches or it touches on those things. Now, most people just on the surface might look at this movie and see it as a tragic story. But when you really see with your third eye, when you really decode it through an occult lens, you realize that it's a hermetic alchemical story, right? There's a lot of metaphysical lessons in human potential. And they even say it within the movie, right? But I know at the time when I saw it in my youth, these were not themes or ideas that I had ever been introduced to. So me seeing it in my youth, I recognized something within myself that this movie really touches me, but I don't really understand how or why. And that's what movies of this magnitude tend to do. About they're more about higher spiritual principles than they are just about telling you a story. Because we have to remember that your mind can digest and process these things through stories better. That's always been a part of humanity for centuries, the means of storytelling, right? Now, if we really get into those things, like for instance, if we look at isolation as a thing, now understand that isolation is connected to the number seven. So when we're dealing with seven, we can correlate that to chakras. So we can understand that that's a chakra correlation in the meaning of seven. And when you're looking at numerology, seven can be associated with isolation, with solitude, because we're talking about going spiritually within. Now, if you're on this journey, if you study the knowledge of self, the ancient knowledge, if you walk that particular path, then you can relate to the whole concept of isolation because you're different. So, what happens when someone is too different for the world to accept? So, Powder's journey as an outcast mirrors the experience of many seekers of higher knowledge. The seven also correlates to the seeker. So throughout history, mystics, visionaries, and awakened beings have always been misunderstood by society, forcing them into a sense of isolation, a sense of solitude. And when you spend more time alone or with yourself, you often find that there's a lot more self reflection. There's a lot more going within, which brings spiritual enlightenment. So, this is the concept of the seeker. This is why we have the isolation. So, in applying that, think about your own journey. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong? Are you the black sheep of your family? You know, um, oftentimes isolation is a sign that you're on a path that is meant for transformation because everybody's not going to go along that journey with you. So, although we may feel like it's rejection, it's more of a spiritual calling to do something more, right? Um, Now looking at the theme of enlightenment. Enlightenment, when we're talking about the awakening of the higher self, right? So Powder possesses a mind that is far beyond his years, is far beyond his peers. They tested him with the IQ test, and he pretty much was the. They pretty much said he was the smartest human that they have ever seen anywhere. So he was able, and his intelligence was beyond just logic, intellect, his intuition, right? He was able to perceive and feel things that most people cannot. This reflects the concept of spiritual enlightenment. This is them showing you how spiritual enlightenment looks. Remember, movies have to exaggerate things. Everything has to be made on a bigger scene, on a bigger scale, so that you can understand the message that is trying to relate to you. So, the moment that when we begin to see the world beyond the material and we recognize the interconnectedness of all things, that's a sense of awakening. Okay? So, think about it in this way: the journey to enlightenment oftentimes begins with suffering, right? So, and in this sense, we see how he suffers. We see the things that inflicts him, the things that he has been through, and what he must continue to go through, especially when he's thrown out into the world, right? So we have to utilize deep inner work, doing shadow work, meditation, right? And building up and accumulating our knowledge so that we can begin to unlock our true nature. That's the whole purpose of the spiritual enlightenment. Now, in terms of the theme of energy, um, Powder exhibits control over electricity, right? So, and he has a heightened sensitivity to energy, right? Now, this is a metaphor for the power that exists within all of us. This is why this is also a movie themed in human evolution and the next step of our consciousness and what that typically can look like, right? So, ancient spiritual traditions and ancient knowledge speaks of chi, prana, our chakra body, kundalini energy, right? Um, and even in science, we acknowledge there's a bioelectric field. We acknowledge that our bodies have its own electromagnetic field. So we aren't just people, we are energetic beings, right? And when we practice breath work, when we practice energy healing, when we tune our aura, when we do all these holistic alternative health measures for our wellness and for our wholeness, we can begin to harness our own energetic potential, right? So we can harness that energy the way that powder does, in a sense. Now, like I said, of course, the movie exaggerates because it's supposed to, but you are limitless. Remember, in limitless, but we have been conditioned and put into this box that makes us limited in who and what we think we are. It limits our potential, which is why it's important that we understand that was one of the main benefits of him not ever going to school. So him not ever entering into school, especially from the age that we attend school, we start school at 4 or 5 years old. That's a very, very impressionable age. We have not even found the foundation, solidified the foundation of ourselves at that age. So that system is subdued on us, and it begins to mold who we see ourselves as, right? Um, now, and like we said, we pretty much kind of talked on the evolution theme. So when we're talking about the theme of evolution, it's not just physical, we're talking about spiritual evolution, right? Powder does not die, he transcends or he ascends, as in that's the next step, that is the next level. And for those of you who want to get deeper, who want to dive more into this in an applicable way and how to take this knowledge and apply it, I want you guys to stick around on the Patreon. I want you to follow up this video, this next section that is going to be on the Patreon. And that's for the deeper breakdown. That's where, like I said, we go into the esoteric applications of this movie in real life. How do we apply this in real life? Because just talking about knowledge is pointless. There's no point in just talking about these things or just being so intrigued by what this does, or what this is all meaning, if we're not going to apply it to ourselves and actually make ourselves, take ourselves through a transformation. At that point, it's just spiritual ego. If you're not applying this, if you just want to know it, if you just want to know it so you can repeat it, so you can know something that don't nobody else know, or just so you can get caught up in the delusion of grandeur of it, then it's just your ego. It's just feeding your ego. So you have to take that knowledge and you have to do something with it. You have to apply it, because you're supposed to take all this and you're supposed to actually confront your ego. You're supposed to confront your shadow. If you're not doing that, you're not really doing anything at the end of the day. Now, as I told you, this is an alchemical story. It's really showing you alchemy through the sense of storytelling through a character. So we're looking at the character of Powder. And Powder himself is a symbol of the white alchemical being. In alchemy, it's all about the magnum opus, or the great work. And it's really about transforming yourself. Now, they'll want to tell you it's about turning lower base metals into gold. Mm-mm. That's an exoteric version of what that means. Now, there is the esoteric meaning behind what that means, which is talking about within yourself. So it's talking about you transforming yourself to your truest and your highest potential. You're the greatest version of yourself. So he is representing the whitening stage. Now we're looking at alchemy. Now this is what I talked about in the book, The Guide to Self-Mastery. The whole book is about alchemy, and it's about the stages of alchemy and me elaborating on what alchemy is and how you apply that to your own journey so that you can master yourself. Now, alchemy in its basic meaning is talking about 3 stages. Nigredo, which is the blackening stage, Albedo, which is the whitening stage, and Rubedo, which is the reddening. So powder is the characterization or the materialization of what the albedo stage is. That's why symbolically his skin is so white. That's why his skin is white, like white. Like it's whiter than white so-called white people are comfortable with. I'm gonna be careful with my words because this is YouTube, right? But it's a representation of the purest state of consciousness. Now I know some of y'all are gonna get triggered by the way I'm saying it, but I want y'all to follow me so we can go through the whole process. Just follow me through it and you'll understand what I'm saying because it has nothing to do with race, which is why the whole racial system was created from the start with. See, you gotta understand that all things have an occult foundation, all things have an occult meaning or a hidden meaning. All occult meaning is hidden. So there is a hidden meaning, there is a hidden reason, there are hidden forces behind why the race system is what it is. Okay, so pay attention to this now. So within society itself, there is a hidden meaning behind whites and blacks. This shit is not a coincidence. It is purposely done for this particular reason to keep you away from what it is that you are truly supposed to be out here really looking into. It's about the true purposeful meaning of being here and you evolving and you reaching your enlightenment and taking yourself out of here and escaping what this whole reality is. But there's a reason why. There is a reason why the white and the black race was created. There's a reason for that. You got to know that. And it's going to take for you just for a little while to go above that system so you can see the bigger picture. So if it's possible for you, you got to take race out of your mind for the purposes of you being able to see the whole board for what it is. This is why the Masonic symbolism of the black and white checkered floor. It's a play on the law of duality, the law of polarity. All of this is based in very spiritual and occult foundations. It is not an accident. It is supposed to be done this way so that you can stay asleep. But if you can just get out of that box, so you can stop limiting yourself based on race, I promise it will do wonders for you in your spiritual journey. Then you might not be there. I understand. So some of you may get triggered by this, but it's very important that you follow me through it so you can kind of understand. Now I'm gonna get into this deeper on the Patreon because, like I said, this is YouTube, so we know what it is, what we dealing with, right? So there's an occult reason as to why you are classified as black. Okay, there is an occult meaning to why in the justice system or in legal law black means dead. There's a reason for this because if you look at alchemy, the Nigredo stage is the death stage. It's pretty much a representation of the shadow. It's a representation of everything in terms of your journey, in terms of your work, everything that you have that's pushed in the shadow of your consciousness, the things that you want to hide, the things that you don't want to accept as being a part of you. When we snap out and we do things, when we react to something, we trigger, it's because that shadow or that part of you, of your consciousness, is trying to protect you from something that you are not ready to deal with yet because you have not brought that into the light. The whitening is the light stage. It is the light. This is why alchemy is all about integrating the two. Listen, if you listen to the words that I'm using, and if you look at history, how these words and how race has been played, you can understand how this shit is really just a play in your face so that you cannot spiritually evolve. Now, I'm not saying none of this to dismiss the way that society is structured in a caste or racial system. I'm not dismissing it. I'm not saying that's not what it is, but there is an occult reason behind why it works the way it works. And when you can understand the way a game is played, that is the only way you are going to win it. You understand? That's the only way you can win the game is if you understand the rules. And if you just running around being emotionally manipulated by this system, you're just food. You are just prey. You are being preyed upon by hidden forces and beings and things that you have no idea is utilizing you as food. So it's all based in universal principle. Nothing is what it is by accident. Black people are generally characterized as the bottom class, as the criminal class, the poor class, all the things that have to do with darkness, that has to do with the shadow. And subconsciously, there is the idea or the concept of the idea of whiter being better. Because we talk the next stage of alchemy is the whitening stage. It's it's people will physically go about performing this process in a physical way. It's not physical at all. That's why you get people that want to be whiter. They want to be lighter. They start to bleach their skin, or why we can subconsciously view those who have lighter skin as having it easier. This shit is really, it's deep, man. It really, really is, because this shit is so thorough. It is such a thorough system that is damn near impossible to show this or to get somebody to understand how this shit is all a spiritual warfare, how it's all happening in more than just a physical way. This shit is a perversion of your natural spiritual nature. And that shit is not by accident. It's not. It's not an accident that you got to deal with the industrial prison complex. It's not an accident that you got to deal with the redlining of the neighborhoods, by having the worst or the less fortunate school systems. It's not an accident why you are mentally programmed to have the experience that you are having. It's not an accident that you are stuck in poverty. It's literally a program. This shit has been set in place for you since your birth. This shit is a program that you must rewrite. You have to become the authority of your story so that now you can author your shit and rewrite your shit. That's the whole point of it. That's why you gotta elevate. That's why you gotta become more aware of the system. That's why knowledge is power. Because you have to understand the rules of this system, the rules of this game. That's why it's a fucking checkerboard. That's why it's like that. Because it is a game. This shit is all an illusion. So you have to become knowledgeable of how this game works. You have to learn the rules so that you can strategically escape the fucking game. That's how it works. And there are so many obstacles in your way. So many obstacles that are purposely placed in front of you. But the power is within you to transform it all. Right? The power is within you to transform it all. There are hidden forces at work. So you must become aware of what these hidden forces are and how they work. That's why you got to learn the laws of the universe. That's why you got to learn the Hermetic principles. That's why. Now, looking at powder being the representation that he is, we can compare this to other mythological light bringers. He's a light bringer. He brings lights. So he sheds light on the darkness. He brings light into the dark. So all of these ignorant people, he brings light to them. Now, not everybody's going to be accepting of the light. There are going to be those who reject it. Most people are going to reject your light. Most people are going to reject your light. It's just the nature of this world that we in. Now, there are other light bringers that we could compare him to, like Prometheus. Prometheus stole the fire from the gods to bring enlightenment to humanity, much like powder bringing knowledge and transformation. Stealing the fire from the gods, he said his grandmother called the lightning the white fire. And he always felt it calling to him, which was the only thing that really seemed to scare him was lightning. Every time he heard a thunderstorm, he would look up. We looking at Christ being a light bearer. Christ was rejected by the world. He but possessed divine knowledge and transcended through resurrection, paralleling powder in the end, ultimately dealing with transcending, right? So Christ was crucified. Okay, so think about crucifixion and what crucifixion means beyond just physical crucifixion, but metaphysically crucifixion. When we're talking about what that means, I recommended many a times the book, The Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. You want to get that book. If you grew up in Christianity or a form of Christianity, you want to get the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And you want to look up, constantly use words and names of the Bible in that particular book, because it will give you the symbolic metaphysical meaning of what that is portraying and what that means. Now, I believe for those of you on the Patreon, I have shared this with you all before. So if we go to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and if we do look up, let me see if I can see if we can find a crucifixion. Okay, so if we look at the crucifixion of Jesus, right? So if we look at it here, let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, so the crucifixion of Jesus, metaphysical, it means the giving up of the whole personality, right? Uh, so it says, let's see. Crucifixion, the crossing out in consciousness of errors that have become fixed states of mind, the surrender or death of the whole personality in order that the Christ mind may be expressed in all its fullness. The crucifixion of Jesus represents the wiping of personality out of consciousness. We deny the human self so that we may unite with the selfless. We give up the mortal so that we may attain the immortal. We dissolve the thought of the physical body so that we may realize the spiritual body. So, what happened at the end? This is what happened at the end of the movie. This is what he did. He gave up his physical self. Like when Jesus was resurrected, he went to be with his Father. Heaven ain't on earth. So that's the giving up of the physical body to be one with the spirit, which is ultimately what he did. He ascended. So that was the meaning behind it all, right? So another light bearer figure we could look at is Thoth or Tahuti, which is the ancient Egyptian Let's see. I just lost my light. Hold on real quick. So we're looking at Thoth or the Houthi. We're talking about the Egyptian god of wisdom, right? Or the Kemetic god of wisdom, writing and esoteric knowledge, symbolizing the power of consciousness and enlightenment, which is what powder represents. He knew things that the average person wouldn't know, and he hadn't been taught these things. Man, his grandmother homeschooled him, but he read a lot of books. He learned a lot of things innately. Okay. Now, one of the most important themes in the movie that I got to make sure I speak on is energy manipulation. He controls electricity, and he's able to take the he's able to transfer emotional states. So what he does is, one of the most powerful scenes was he allowed that deputy to experience that state of what that deer was feeling that he hunted. Very, very powerful scene, because it transferred emotional states between beings. So even though he made sure that he allowed the deputy to feel it, we also got to be mindful that he felt it too. He had to feel it too. It's almost like a charge going from one creature to another, going through him as a medium. So he had to feel this too. Now, I would imagine this is probably something that he can feel naturally anyway, because he's already capable of feeling things that most people have lost the means or connection to be able to feel. And he has a very attuned connection to nature. Um, this kind of brings in also, when we're talking about the electromagnetism and the human energy potential from a scientific point of view, electromagnetism. So the human body is an electromagnetic field. Ancient mystics have taught this. Whether you're talking about chi, whether you're talking about prana, life force energy, it's been stated different ways throughout different ancient cultures throughout time, right? So what we see in the movie, it is an exaggeration. Again, I'm gonna make that be clear, that we see an exaggeration of this esoteric concept, because they gotta do it over the top to drive it home. That's always the point when it comes to art, when it comes to theater, particularly movies, because movies is just a transference of what's theater to move to screen, right? So it always is an exaggeration. So there has to be an exaggeration to drive home these esoteric concepts. So this isn't fiction, right? This isn't fiction. Ancient masters have spoken about using the body's energy field to influence reality. And powder represents what happens when a human reaches full energetic perception or potential. So reaching full potential, this is what this is shown as. Hey, Callie, I see you. Okay. So I'm going to speak on how you can cultivate this in real life in that Patreon exclusive. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to go to the Patreon. Um, so this is why his ending is so powerful. It's not sad. It's not sad at all. It's like he went to the next step. He doesn't die. He transcends or ascends, just like the esoteric concept of turning the lead into gold. He is the perfected ascended being. This is what he represents. So this is a direct reference to the great work of alchemy. It's the final stage, the Rubedo, the ascension. This is what happens when you integrate, because although he's a representation of the whitening phase, his experience in the world takes him down a dark road, because we see what happens when he gets angry, when he gets in a place of negativity, so to speak, and we see how his whole energy and what he's actually capable of in the other direction. And humanity was driving him to this. So it's important to look at his experience and everything he was going through, because it contributed to him being able to truly go to the next stage. Now, lastly, the last thing I want to touch on is I want you to understand that the movie, what it means, it's about you. It's not about him, it's about your spiritual awakening. The real message of it is about you. The movie is a blueprint for unlocking your hidden potential and stepping into a higher frequency of existence. These there are concepts that these are of these concepts we can apply them in real life in terms of shadow work, you know what I'm saying, and the outcast experience, using your pain to fuel your transformation. Energy work and mastering electromagnetism. That's developing your intuition, understanding your aura, learning how to control your aura. Alchemy of the soul is the path to higher consciousness. And when it comes to understanding that your struggles is shapes your growth. So you have to embrace your role as being an outcast, as being a black sheep, because it can be your first step towards enlightenment, and as you work on or practice your breath work, you begin to amplify your electromagnetic field. This is how you can operate more from a place of love, techniques like Qigong, Reiki, and meditation. These are things that help you learn to harness your energy, or at least in terms of learning how to control your own energy, learning not to allow so many things to manipulate you and your energy, so that you can be the master of yourself, so that you can reign over yourself. That's the true meaning of sovereignty, right? And as you understand and build on your knowledge of the stages of the alchemical transformation, you will see this in your own life. It allows you to be able to release old patterns, to purify your mind and your spirit and allow you to step into a higher version of yourself. So these are concepts that we shouldn't just be aware of the symbolism. We have to know how to utilize these concepts in real life, so that we are actually working on our spirituality and not just feeding the spiritual ego, you know. So in that sense, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Share this with somebody that will find this very useful, and be on the lookout for more movie breakdowns and more occult knowledge information to come. And if you do want to get into that deep dive, make sure that you subscribe to the Patreon. There are going to be some additional resources there for you, so that you can actively incorporate these things in your life, so you can step into your highest power, so you can have the transformation that's needed, so you can have better relationships, so you can, be more aligned with your true self and walk more in your purpose, so to speak, So this movie is just one of many. That's a movie that's not just a movie, but more of a message. And it is coded with lessons in human evolution, energy mastery, and enlightenment. And I hope that you will continue to keep up with the video, so that you can start to apply these things in your life. And also, let me know in the comments what scene from Powder really hit you the hardest. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to turn your notifications on, because we're just getting started on decoding the esoteric and occult messages in these movies. And I would love it if you guys would join me on the lives for the Q&A so we can have even further discussion about these things. So that's all I got for you all for today. So be sure to be on the lookout for more. Peace.